Thank you so much. And over to you, Howard.
Dibs, thanks very much. I just need to bring a correction on the meetup. We spoke of a MetLife AI use case. We'll certainly not be sharing a MetLife use case. We will be talking about the insurance framework. So that was just a typo on my side when I prepared the teaser for Debbie. So we will be focusing today a lot on the insurance industry and explaining how we can deal with the unification in the insurance industry. So apologies for maybe misleading anybody. Apologies for that. Okay. All right. So this is the presentation that I'll be going through. You'll see this link over here will ask you questions about the appropriate frameworks or data management frameworks that you should know about. So anyone involved in governance, you should be aware of these different frameworks. And what I'm going to try to show you today is a couple of things. One is the extent of these different frameworks, and certainly that these frameworks can help you. And yes, you need to understand it, but you need to be careful of almost becoming dependent on a framework or a set of frameworks, and that's the way you do things. These frameworks are there for guidance. These frameworks are there for presenting a way of doing it, everything from Informatica, information governance framework, to Calibra, to whatever it is. So it's about choosing the frameworks that are right for you and right for your industry. Okay, so let me go a little bit further, and then hopefully I can introduce all of this to you. So here are the different governance areas, and I'm using the term information governance here, not I'm not saying that this is the right term. I find that term a little bit misleading. That lots of people refer to as information governance, other people refer to it as records management. And what I'm trying to suggest is these are all the things that we need to bring together, and that the governance needs to look after. Okay, so here we can see the DMBAR, DCAM, and that's typically not a data management framework. It's a capability assessment. CMMI, ISO 38505, which is the ISO data governance. And then you've got industry-specific areas that are going to affect us. For example, BCBS 239, if you're in banking or insurance, COBIT, and it all depends on where you're at and what you need to pay attention to. Information governance, there's ARMA, ISO 15489, ISO 30301, and all of the different regulatory frameworks. So this is the National Archives for Australia, and there's the National Archives for Record Administration in America. And then we've got the National Archive and Retention for South Africa. So all of these things play a role, and this was sort of part of my discussions I was having with MetLife earlier this week, they are having to deal with all sorts of different frameworks, and it's important for them to understand which ones and choose the ones that are relevant to them. Then we talk about AI governance. That's that 42,000 series, and there's a whole lot of different areas. NIST, AI risk management framework, ethical AI guidelines, very helpful. The OECD, emerging regulations, AI procurement, and also AI insurance maturity assessment, and large language models. How do we protect the full stack safety? So lots of different areas that we need to look at. And I found just in doing this, my head starts to spin with all of the guidance that you're getting and receiving, and then trying to make sense of all of this. I find it extremely hectic. There are just too many things going on. I'd love to just get some feedback from you in terms of, is anyone else paying attention to all of these different frameworks, or is it just too much? Is it just too much for you and you may be choosing one or two? Love to get your feedback in that area. Deirdre, is there, I see your lights flickering, anything from you or?
No.
Okay, no problem. Mbanda, anything from your side that you need to worry about? I'm sure all of us are having to deal with data privacy regulations, then choosing the right data management framework, the right data management maturity model, records management, AI governance. Is anyone getting into those areas at the moment or having to deal with it?
Yes, Howard. We are getting on data governance, that DMBOK, the DAMA.
Right, right.
Yeah. No, it's a challenge getting it off the ground, but
Okay.
we receiving traction now. It's getting better, and looks like everyone in the organization seems to understand as we have more and more sessions.
Okay, great. And one of the things that you'll find, one of the complaints with the DMBOK is that it was 2017, so it doesn't have a lot of the AI regulations and governance that's coming about. So that's why we're working hard on the version 3 editorial board, to be able to get hold of this and start to deal with it. So here's just a backdrop. I just wanted to show you a backdrop of all the different areas. Now, part of what I think is important is making sure that you have the appropriate maturity models to do a maturity assessment. And then it's about understanding the operational procedures that you can make use of, and not about saying, oh, what are my procedures for data privacy? And then I do that. And then what are my procedures for the DMBOK, or my procedures for AI governance? So how do we bring together a set of procedures that will help us navigate all of these different areas, and not go down a rabbit hole of one specific framework? Lots of them provide governance, and it's about choosing the right set of governance. And then artifact creation, again, it's a case of, for example, data privacy. There's something called, in GDPR, there's something called the ROPA, which is a registry of processing activities. Now, if you look at the data architects, they would have brought together something like an enterprise data model with all of the data flows, and understanding where the data moves. And it's about recognizing that work that the architects are doing can deal with that evidence of, the registry of processing activities. When you understand all of your business processes against your subject area model, and then the data flows that are related to that, you only really need to produce that core set of artifacts and not try to create an artifact for every single regulation, standard, framework, and things like that. It just gets it becomes overwhelming very quickly. And I'm hoping now I saw someone mentioning the fact that working on AI governance is part of it, and we designed an AI adoption strategy. We're not paying attention at the moment. So to this, so I'm assuming, Satish, you're not really looking at the ISO 42000. Is that correct? So how did you put together your set of adoption? How did you go about understanding what you need to adopt and not adopt? Okay, all right, no problem. I'll talk. So I think that's okay, great. And then once we've created the artifacts, then we also need to be able to score the artifacts to ensure that we're doing the correct job. And these scorecards are going to need to validate that you're in compliance. Whatever work you've done, for example, if you do a privacy impact assessment, or if you do an ethical impact assessment, or a readiness assessment in terms of risk management, how do you ensure that you've tackled the appropriate areas of compliance? And then of course case studies to be able to work through that. So one of the things that I think is so important, and I hope this is what you come away with in these next 4 weeks, is that we need to be able to get back to performing projects, understanding the actions that we need to take, and not so much all of the different frameworks and the aggregation or the abstraction across the different frameworks. Especially, I see that with data privacy, we're having to apply to possibly 3 or 4 different jurisdictions, depending on our customer base. And now, how do we deal with each one? Do we deal with each one of them individually, or do we create a set of generic principles and then deal with it at a principle level or an abstraction level? And I even find that that's a lot of work that needs to be done across all of these different frameworks. Okay, then how do we get incremental compliance? How do we build the maturity and the evidence, one operational procedure at a time? And then I think what's also important is, as we create these artifacts, each artifact should be we should be able to register evidence that we are adhering to a framework, adhering to an assessment and maturity model, and then also building our knowledge. Okay, so that's critical as well. So what I'd like to be able to do is to say, in my policies and procedures, when I deliver this artifact, it does this for DCAM, it does this for my data management maturity model, it does this for the NIST AI risk management framework. So in the background, we've done all of this planning, but I need to know from a governance point of view that I've got these processes, and as we're delivering the artifacts and reviewing them and scoring them, I'm ticking the right boxes and I'm understanding what impact it has on my maturity. Okay, so basically every step, every procedure leaves a trace for compliance, and every step collects knowledge and learning. Okay. And then when I review and I gate and I do those review gates, which is what the scorecard's all about. So for all of my gates that I have set up for my development process or whatever it is, I score the appropriate artifacts and I achieve a level of trust. Okay, so we can use it not just as audits, but also as coaching, and then enhancing the trust that we're getting from the people within the organization, across the organization, and any internal audit that's doing a review. Okay, so they need to see that we're growing. Okay, customization is key. Being able to build the appropriate operating procedures for ourselves, for our own organization, and then to be able to tackle what we can do. And that's also a challenge now, as a case of we may need to be doing something, but we're not technically capable of doing it right now. So how do we handle some of those things, and how do we make sure that the initiatives that we take on from the strategy we can deliver, and not say, oh well, we can't do that, so that's important. Okay. The other thing that's important is achieving scalability and sustainability. So as we grow in our talent and skill bases in our development, we are increasing our scalability and we are improving our sustainability. Okay, so we need to get this governance into operations, and it's not just about projects, policies, and procedures. It's also about ensuring we have a sustainable approach. Okay. All right. So any questions from that side? I can see that Satish is putting something down there. Basically, the flow is we get a use case, we validate the technical and functional requirement, i.e., the commercial and technical feasibility. Once it's agreed, we would create the appropriate workflow in these different areas. And Satish, I'm actually going to show you the different areas that I think you should be addressing. So we'll come back to that just now. Okay. And then there's the risk stuff as well. Okay. So let's have a look at this unified governance. Now, I don't know if you remember some time back, I actually looked at how do we align all of these different frameworks. You may remember this, where we start off basically at the body of knowledge and the BizBark, which is the business architecture body of knowledge. Okay, and they address the stakeholder, the value proposition, value stream. So this is the value that the data strategy should be bringing into play. Okay, so whenever we build a data strategy, are we linked to the value proposition and the goals of the business architecture? Then we have the capabilities that come along that. Okay, and then we drop down from the business architecture, we start dropping down into processes, disciplines, dimensions, best practice, okay, policies, implementation framework, procedures, and standards. And here we pick up the DMBOK and the records management from ARMA, and they've dealt with those areas. And the DMBOK also talks about artifacts. Okay, so that first level before there was really just showing us the processes that we have for data management. And then we start dropping into the artifact with its scorecard, and then the different guidelines. So there's the data science, body of knowledge that we need to pay attention to, data literacy, software engineering. And that area over there gives me what I refer to as assurance. So can I assure my organization that we are going to deliver and we're not going to overstep the risk that the risk tolerance that our organizations defined, and we are going to achieve the level of maturity and capability that we've spoken about. And very interesting, when you look at the DSBOK or the data science body of knowledge, they talk about capabilities and competencies. And this is an area that's also been addressed by DCAM, which refers to the data capability assessment model. Okay, that's what DCAM stands for. Right. Now, after that, we go to the maturity models like CMMI, NDI, Gartner, TDWI. There's a set of models over there that focus on how well are we doing in terms of our data management processes and systems. That's the ranking that we get over there. So please don't confuse these areas and understand exactly what these different frameworks or assessment models are doing. Okay, and then we've got CMM, which is the common maturity model for software engineering, and that's focusing at that level over there. Okay, then we've got all of these different frameworks, and it just goes crazy. In Saudi, there's something called NORA, which is very similar to TOGAF. They've also got the NDMO, which deals with all of the disciplines and all of the knowledge areas of the DMBOK plus more. So they've actually got more than what the DMBOK has. And then we've got these different ISO frameworks. 80,061, that's master data and data quality around that area. ISO 11179, metadata, 38505, and then we've got 55,000, which is your asset management. And there's a whole lot of things, and I know that I'm missing a few, but I'm just trying to give you an understanding of all of the different things that could impact us, and people could ask us questions of, well, what are you doing about this? Um, there's BCBS 239, the National Archives of Australia, or all of the PCI, GDPR, Papaya, all of these things that are coming about that we need to pay attention to. And then the NIST AI Risk Management Framework, I'm going to show you some details. And then we've got a whole lot of industry reference models from business architecture and IBM and Teradata. They bring out their models as well. Accord also got data models, and UDM, that's the Unified Dimension Model that Len Silverstone put together. Um, so then just to create some visuals in terms of what these different areas are, there's the business architecture framework, DCAM, the DMBOK lifecycle, the DMBOK data management functions. There's ARMA with its different areas over here. And there it is separating data and content. NDI, that's a framework from Saudi that deals with these different areas. Then we've got NORA, and we've got the NIST framework as well. Okay, so all I can say on this situation is that there are so many things going, so many valuable things to look at, and it's important for us to decide, well, which ones do we look at and which ones are important to us. Okay, yeah, Charles, you're correct. In the industry is the PPBM for oil and gas, and that's certainly, we've been having discussions with Aramco and different people. So wherever you go, you've got to bring in these different models that come about. Okay. Now, what I wanted to show you was I actually spent some time now looking at all of the different frameworks for the industry, for the insurance industry. And I can now click on, for example, AI governance. There's the DSBOK. Now, it's a little bit depressing because their last one is 2017, very similar to the DMBOK. That's the last time they published it. So they don't have anything to do with Gen AI, which is a bit disappointing. And then we've got the ethical AI in life insurance. So I don't know how many of you have actually had a look at this. There's some work done by the American College Center for Ethics, AI, Ethics in Life Insurance, balancing innovation with access. So people need to pay attention to this one as well, and understand what it does to them. Okay, we've got the EU bringing about a whole lot of acts. This is the 42,000 series. And then there's another one, the National Association for Insurance Commissioners. And this is all of the different areas that we need to pay attention to here. Okay. The AI models, the state of insurance regulators, and areas like that. Okay, so now what I've done is almost broken all this together. I was quite surprised that there's actually a insurance specification in the UK for analytics. I don't know if anybody's aware of this. How many people are in the insurance industry? Just to see if anyone can relate to that. That's a UK insurance, data insurance data capability model. Okay, so again, these things are, we've got these generic ones like TDWI and DCAM, but then we've got industry specific capability models. Okay, and that's what Charles is pointing out there as well. So for oil and gas, there's PPDM that you need to pay attention to. And Charles, if I'm correct, there's actually a data management certification as well for the oil and gas industry. I think it's related to that organization that builds the PPDM. Is that correct, Charles? Okay. Yeah, PPDM. Okay, fantastic. All right. So, and this is just a bit of about a few. So there's Bismarck, there's FEAF, there's Infotech that's got life and annuity insurance. There's their business reference architecture, and you can download that in terms of the different capabilities. That's what it looks like. So we need to be aware of them, but I'm hoping, and I suppose in a way I'm doing this on purpose to be able to show you how quickly we can overload ourselves in terms of all of these different frameworks. Gartner, IBM, Informatica, these are the different 27,000 series, the ISO 38505. That seems to be an incorrect link. Apologies for that. And then there's the Accord reference architecture as well. Okay. Are there any questions in terms of these different frameworks? And what I've done as well is I've tried to almost look at the related principles. So, for example, there's DAMA, and these are the principles that DAMA puts forward. I think there's more than that. EDM Council, the Open Group, and the different areas as well. And what I found is there's different approaches. Some people like to work and link all of these different frameworks based on principles. What I like to do is work from the bottom in terms of artifacts and say, when I deliver this artifact, what does it do for me in terms of AI governance, in the different areas over there. There's AI risk management framework. Now, I can just show you over here that the nice thing about the AI risk management framework. Yes, William.
Hi, Howard. Just have these frameworks all got their own glossaries, or are they at least sort of working off something common?
They've all got their own glossaries. So let me share with you.
That adds a little complexity in terms of what they really mean by certain things. Okay, but that's good to know. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm just trying to get to NIST, AI, RMF, and there's actually with each one of them. I would, I'm sure that as you do this, they of course are trying to, and they have to ensure that they have a glossary that focuses on their information. And I'm trying to find out. I saw the list somewhere, but I can't find it right now. Okay. Now, what you'll see here is this is the documentation that needs to be produced. So you can take governance and you can break it up. And what I like about these different word clouds is that in Govern 1.2, as part of the RMF, the risk management framework, this is what it talks about. Policies and procedures. Policies, processes, and procedures are central components to effective AI risk management and fundamental to individual and organizational accountability. So what's it about? What are the actions? And then what is the documentation? And these are the questions on the documentation. To what extent do these policies foster trust and confidence in the system? What policies has the entity developed to ensure the use? What policies and documentations to encourage the system? And then to what extent are the model outputs consistent with the entity's value proposition? Okay, so every single time we create an artifact, we need to link it to something along here, specifically at the documentation level, to say this one deals with this aspect over here. And of course, you can go to these different references and find out which one you're addressing. Yeah. So nice to be able to work through the risk management framework and understand exactly what we're dealing with. They've got a really nice approach to being able to say we govern and then we manage the systems that are in place. Okay, and these are the different levels different areas that you need to manage, tolerances, organizational resources. These are the different risks and files and areas that you need to pick up. And so one by one, you need to be able to work through all of these things. Okay. Data sheets for data sets. So these are the references over there in terms of understanding those documentations that we need to create. Okay. Any questions on that? Has anyone looked at the RMF, the risk management framework? I find this really helpful, almost starting here to be able to understand what are the frameworks that I'm battling with. What are the areas that I need to do? I'm not sure why that went.
Yeah, so Howard, that AI risk management framework, what I like about it is it's not complex, and also it works off all of NIST's work, right? So it has common definition across all of the different NIST things, and I find that really helpful because there are lots of different things that NIST addresses, right?
Yeah. Correct. And this is, so I'm actually going to let me just go back on this thing. So these are the different categories, and I'll come to you now, William. I'll come back to your point now. These are the different categories that I've looked at, the possible frameworks for insurance that needs to be paid attention to. Here's like a summary of what are the frameworks you could and should be understanding and making a decision about. Of course, you wouldn't choose overlapping frameworks. For example, you wouldn't choose IBM data governance and the Gartner EIM framework. You wouldn't have multiples there. So that it is a little bit dependent on the technology. If you want to apply Informatica or Calibra, which ones are you going to choose in that process? Okay, so now when we go down a little bit further, we look at, and I think this is what's important, is we start with the business objectives. The business objectives will describe the set of potential AI use cases that we can apply to those objectives. I really like having these set of use cases available. So when we're talking ideation or strategy, what can we look at? So, for example, here's customer experience, personalization, market analysis. This is where Spotify have done so well. Process automation, RPA. Okay, then we got product and service innovation, decision intelligence, HR and workforce productivity, IT and technology enablement, AI operations. And so you could be picking a whole lot of these different use cases. And my advice is to sort of start with one, make sure you can deliver it or buy it that delivers the appropriate business value. But unfortunately, a lot of the times we are not succeeding in this situation. So statistics from Gartner, only 54% of the AI models move into production. 85% of the AI models may fail. Okay, 70 to 80% of Gen AI fail to meet the ROI. PMI organization AI projects are failing. Enterprise abandon most AI initiatives. That's 42%, and then 80% of AI projects fail. And when you look at this, it's quite nerve-wracking to even think of providing assurance. Yes, William.
So do you think this is a double bounce? So in other words, gee, we kind of got it wrong right up front. Let's recalibrate and try again. Or we're looking at a .com like situation, like, guys, we're just nowhere near ready for this.
I think it's the calibration, William, and that's certainly what I'm trying to suggest here is that if you get, first of all, what I've been doing with a company called Predago, who I'm working with, they've been ingesting all of these frameworks, some of them, not every single one of them, ingesting the frameworks and then using a lot of generative AI to understand the appropriate processes that need to be performed, and then trying to get a set of processes that can help you deliver. And that's the technique that we're looking at doing. Does that make sense, William?
Yeah, it does. So just to
I'm just
answer,
joining a meeting now.
okay, just to answer the question that was popped into the chat.
Show me right now.
Pardon?
I just muted the. I think somebody else
Okay.
was.
So
Sorry.
so just to answer the person's question in the chat, a while ago, early 2000s, there was the .com thing where everybody said, gee, you know what? We just need to have these websites and then everything will go perfect. And everybody jumped on the bandwagon, and that was a big failure, right? But I agree with you about the calibration. I do think we're probably going to back this thing into the wrong corners a couple of times before we find out exactly how to do this.
I think so. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is to actually show you what's important to understand, and then to work with you to customize what are the appropriate procedures that are going to help you address all of these different challenges, like data quality, explainability, data sovereignty, risk mitigation. All of these things we need to be paying attention to. But if every single one of us were to try to bring all this stuff together and try to link it all together, you'll go mad. I can see just myself trying to build all of these links, the amount of effort that it's taking to connect the dots and understand what should be done when. Is that, and so, and this is what I'm going to sort of suggest now, is that we can, when we have almost our own framework that we need to look at, and we pay attention to the appropriate AI frameworks, the appropriate data management, the appropriate risk, cybersecurity, ethics, and then the systems that are getting involved. I think we can start to build that picture of what we need to recalibrate. William, does that make sense?
Howard, it absolutely makes sense. It doesn't help when all the pieces are all over the show. I like what you're doing here, because you're putting things into classification, and I mean, all of our minds are all over the place, right? Everything's running all over the place. So what you're doing is you're helping us to actually focus correctly. And each one of us has maybe, 3 to 5, maybe 10 different areas of expertise in these. What you're giving us is an ability to actually collaborate across with other people that are in different areas. I think this will be quite helpful.
And what I was blown away by when I've been spending time with Predago is the challenges around procurement. When you buy functions from vendors, AI vendors that will make use of their models, make use of their algorithms. Now, one has to go through a process of training these models, and with your data, with your approach, with your goals. And then all of a sudden it's a case of, well, what happens when we have a divorce? Where does the stuff sit? Where do we have ownership in terms of the stuff, and what can I bring back? And what is mine and what is not mine? So procurement, we need to be paying attention to this as well. Especially on those large language models, like which one do we go for? Do we use ChatGPT, or where do we build it on? Do we use all of them? How do we make the right buying decision?
You know what this reminds me of, Howard? It reminds me of in 2009 when we had this big data thing and a lot of people didn't understand it. You had some people that just said, oh, you know what, I'm taking a couple of steps back. I'm not going to do anything about this because I don't understand enough.
Right.
But then
Right.
you got some really great innovative people that stepped forward and really helped to lay the ground, the foundation in that. And I do believe that in the data management space, we have forward-thinking people. And so I think we've got the right kind of people to step into this to actually help to, at least in their areas, start to bring forward stuff. And I think it's muddy water at the moment, but I think it can clear.
And I think that, just that NIST AI risk management framework, that has been so amazing to be able to read it, put it into ChatGPT, put it into Copilot, ask questions, and it shows you how it covers all of these different areas, what actions, what policies, what procedures, and then you start to calm down in terms of saying, okay, I understand this. This is very much the way we've been governing in the past, and it's now just a different level of policies and stewardship, even stewardship, right? In terms of who's going to be checking this, who's going to be looking at the drift on the data, who's going to be doing all of these things. So ignoring these frameworks and trying to go on your own, I think you'll get into trouble because you need some of this backing as well.
And you know what, Howard, you said the one word that really struck me when I went through the NIST framework, the AI framework. You said you said you calmed down.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the experience that I had, because a lot of stuff was, what if, etc.
Yes, 100%.
And I found it covered so many of the angles. And from a risk perspective, it gave me a lot more comfort that people had really thought this through.
Yeah,
and I would encourage everybody, go and get it's free. Download the thing, read it. You will feel so much better afterwards.
Okay, so you can see here the risk oversight, security, privacy, model, quality, metadata. The amount of, that was amazing. That was mind-blowing. The amount of metadata that we're using per model, those FAIR principles as well. And it's like, okay, shucks, I understand this stuff. We know how to manage this stuff and we can work on it. Paul, I see there's a question from you. Do they give reasons, for the low success numbers?
Yeah, I was struck, Howard, by the number of pilot conversions. The one that stood out to me was on that last page of yours, just how many pilot projects go through to production. Very few do. And I was just wondering, 54% of AI models move from Gartner.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
One of the things I've learned, if you look at CRISP DM, and if you look at a lot of that AI train, remember in the DM they talk data science and they talk about that flow when you go into the training period. Now, what I find, and this is where AI is so different from BI. BI, we know what the requirements are. We know that the thing balances. We can do a maturity assessment, and then we're saying, just do these testing, and then we're done. So you can actually put a bracket around BI testing. You cannot put the bracket around AI model testing and training. It's just, it has to develop to a point that you've got the right level of trust and the right level of decisions that are being made. So Paul, it's and now how long does it take? And then you have all of those challenges of overtraining it, and then you have data quality problems that are getting there. So remember that thing I spoke of, what Andrew and Guy spoke about, the data cascades. So bad data leads into terrible models. Now it's just a case of the guys building these machine learning models we battle with data quality now. They are not just battling with data quality, but they're also trying to get the machine learning models to make these decisions that has a level of trust.
That's interesting. I know it's just fascinating that the results are what they are here, but forgive the terminology, or the wording, but the buzzword, the silver bullet that everybody's I mean, just coming off the training this week, somebody argued with me around the age of the DMBOK versus the AI that's happening, and where is that, and why is it not in here, and blah blah blah. So,
yeah. And to an extent, they're right. You know, the DMBOK has Damer.
Yeah, it's lacking in dealing with it, obviously. Yeah, but
sure.
But I'm just looking at these numbers and I'm thinking, okay, why? I wonder. But anyway, another time.
I think a lot of it's based on you know, not doing the proper governance and the proper management to make sure that your data is right. You've got all these risk mitigation issues like this. Cool. Yes, William.
Thanks.
So, Paul, you raised a great point there, and I think I've seen this pattern a couple of times before, and generally speaking, it is a vendor opportunistic thing to see if I can sell something on the hype that, okay, somebody wants AI. I don't know enough about it as a vendor, but what I'll do is I'll just create enough people to use it, etc., and I'm going to learn from them the mistakes, and eventually I'll have a nice product. It's the same sort of thing that's happened a few times before. I think that's what's going on there. And it just means that the vendors are jumping in way too early. And to your point, Howard, if your data is not right, if you don't have the right quality, if you don't have all those things in place, you really shouldn't try to put it inside a tool. Don't confuse yourself.
Look, I mean, I think we've had this problem all the time. If we look at BI is probably, and I've been there, it's probably one of the easiest things to sell, because so many times you go into an organization, the executives are so frustrated with the lack of delivery in BI, the lack of dashboards that make sense with the appropriate ratios and stuff like that. And it's pretty easy to prepare data and then present it as if this is so easy. You know, we got everything here. We can do all of this stuff, but you're not dealing with the customer's data. You're avoiding that question, which is the hard one. So, people. I mean, the number of times we saw BI things that were just blowing the executives' brains in terms of what could be done, especially some of the balanced scorecard stuff. And so, I think this game has been going on for a while. That the vendors jump in there and basically say, all the problems you're having with A, B, and C, that's a thing of the past. We'll fix it for you. And then people are not wise enough to realize that a lot of it's dependent on the quality of the incoming data, the quality of your processes and your resources that are doing. So there's a challenge there. Okay, so moving on. This is from the OECD. All these different layers, and I like thinking about that in terms of understanding it. So we have external pressures, hard laws and standards that are being produced. So if we just take a look at my Power BI, when I go to the standards, different frameworks, let's look at this. We've got the EU AI Act. We've got this responsible AI frameworks that's coming out. Then we've got NIST and ISO 42000. Now, I want to just ask you, and this is a lesson that I learned when I started working with ISO. But are you aware of the fact that if ISO publishes a standard, and one of the things that the countries have to do, and that's typically the standards body within the country, they have to ensure that framework, that series, is applicable to local conditions. Okay. Now, if that thing gets published and gets accepted by everybody in the world, then all of a sudden that is a default standard that if you were to go to court, someone could ask you, well, why haven't you applied and adhered to the ISO XXX standard or approach? I don't know if anyone's aware of that. William, are you aware? Did you know that you could be asked this question in a court of law? Why didn't you adhere to the standard that ISO did? And you cannot say, oh, shucks, I didn't know about it, and therefore I didn't need to worry about it. Or there wasn't a standard, there wasn't a regulation. Are you aware of that?
No, I am, and especially having been in a very regulated environment in the nuclear industry, you
Right.
needed to make sure that you were doing that and everybody else was doing it, right? Because they count on the fact that other people are in fact sticking to it as well.
Right, right. Now, something that I just thought about when I was sharing with you is that, we in South Africa, we also have the King Commission and the King Code that addresses corporate governance, and they also starting to delve into this area as well. William, I know you had a discussion some time back with somebody around this area. Are you aware of that as well?
Yeah, so basically it's interesting that in the King Code, it's a catch-all phrase because they didn't want to lock it down just to artificial intelligence because they don't know what else is coming. But effectively, it is referring to new and developing. I'm getting the words wrong, but it's basically this technologies and things like that. And bottom line is you have to, as a company, address this in the correct way. And
right. So yeah. Just the message that I'm trying to bring is, I've been focusing just on these now to help with the preparation. And then when we started talking about ISO, I realized, oh shucks, I'm missing corporate governance. So there's another area that we need to keep all of these things coming together and make sure that we adhere to that corporate governance area as well.
100%.
Okay, so again, these are the different layers. So we come from, so there's a standard. The King Commission has a standard for information technology adherence. Then we've got internal aspects, business objectives, principles and values, and risk tolerance. And this is a lot where the business architecture comes in, and enterprise architecture. Once you've got that feeds down to the governance layer, and then the governance would put all of this stuff together and then feed it down to the AI systems layer. And this is where the AI projects are coming in. And so we need to get our policies and procedures in place, and then that drops down into the project layer where they build the AI systems. And each one of these have almost different life cycles. So from an AI system point of view, you're going to have plan and design, collect and process the data. That's the data management. Build and use the model, verify that the model's doing it, validate it, then go into deployment, and then operate and monitor. So that's at the system level. At the governance level is eligibility of AI. Is it appropriate? Are we eligible? The procurement, the adoption of it, the design, the deployment, and operations. So can you see these different levels that are coming through? Yes, William.
So it's interesting how in the past, and specifically with AI, there was a real aversion on the business side to include AI in particular pieces of work. Eventually, they ring-fenced a few steps.
Yeah.
But what they were prepared to do, which I thought was quite good, is they said to the technology people, they said, fine, here is a set of data. Prove this to me in a small environment. I want to throw everything at this, and I want to see what it does and how it does it. And that was a good way to get, because remember, the data owner counts is still accountable, right? So the data owner had to make sure that using this particular data in that space, anybody who's going to consume was still going to be safe. And so it was an innovative way to bring it on board and get the confidence of the data owner to the point that they would then say to the business, you can use this. But it's a dance, because AI keeps changing and evolving. So it's not just like you would do with a normal app. You have to revisit it regularly to see that it's actually still doing it.
The actual the monitoring of the decision making, human in the loop. These are all part of, do we have these policies in place to catch potential failures and potential challenges that we're working through? And again, that's the nice thing about the risk management framework, is that it's almost telling you what you need to do and you need to pay attention to, which is nice. Okay, so the question comes into is how do we start all of this? Now, for me, the important thing is understanding my business priorities, understanding my risk tolerance, understanding the compliance context, understanding our existing capabilities, and then looking at what are our specific AI projects. Okay, so there's quite a few things that you need to pay attention to. And this is a helpful set of checks and balances. So using this type of thing, we can take any use case that we have and do some form of almost highlighting where our challenges are. So for example, fraud and risk detection. What is our state of data operations? Omni-challenge engagement. What is the different state there, and where are the red lights and the challenges that we're facing, and what are the potentials in these different areas? So maybe green is not the best of colors, but it would be saying where are our problems and where can we benefit from looking at these different areas. Okay, so that would be the appropriate use cases, and then what you would do is you'd take those use cases and now start to understand, according to our tolerance to the risks, what can we be impacted by, and this is part of the process. Now there is what I built here for anyone who's interested. I call it a trustworthy taxonomy. Can you see here? This comes from the AI framework, and these are some of the areas that it needs to address. Okay, so these are the different phases: accountability and transparency, explainability and interpretability, fair from harmful bias, privacy enhanced, responsible practice, safe, secure and resilient, and valid and reliable. Okay, so there you can see this is the taxonomy sitting down at the bottom there. I'm hoping that makes sense to you. And you can take any one of those down and then look at adherence to the law. What are the questions? How will we analyze liability considerations and what precautions will be taken? How will we analyze insurance compliance with all relative laws and regulations across every jurisdiction of use? Okay, so those are the questions that we have to be able to make some of these decisions. Any questions or comments on that?
When I went through the NIST and I saw this breakdown, this is that calming effect that you were talking about.
Yeah.
It really does cover the things that people use in their conversations to say, oh, this is going to happen. Oh, that's going to happen. And what I like about it is it says, yes, it can happen. This is how you mitigate it. These are the things you need to put in place to make sure that it doesn't hide things. It doesn't. I learned about things that could potentially be problems that I didn't even know about. But I like the way it talks about how to mitigate and what to put in place to assist. That's really what calmed me down when I was reading it.
Yeah. Now, if you see this, for example, how do I measure these systems? Okay. So this is what measurement 2.1 is all about. Documenting measurement approaches, test sets, metrics, processes. These are the actions that we need to take. And this is the documentation that we need to produce. And these are some of the references that go to that. Okay, so this is some on software engineering that we can download that version over there. Okay, so yes, it's as you're saying, William, it pulls all of this stuff together and helps us understand what needs to be done. So I really like using this risk management framework. Who's accountable? Okay, what is the robustness of a DQ, the reliability, the resilience, and things like that we can run through. Okay, Then we'll go to the laws and standards and policies, and this is where the minefield comes about. Is, oh my goodness, how many of these things do I need to look at against these different areas, and how do I build an appropriate? And then, of course, how do I link this back to my operations and my tools, Calibra, Purview, all of these different areas as well. And then, of course, I've got links to my maturity model. And in this case, I'm showing you the link here to DCAM. These are the DCAM capabilities. And it's got AI strategy that should be part of the AI framework that should bring it. What is the maturity outcome metrics, data operations, risk management, anonymization strategy. So there's ethics and privacy in terms of this, and then also the different models, analytical systems, model requirements, traceability, model bias management, model development processes. So again, I'm just hoping you can see that we shouldn't ignore the work that's been done by some of these vendors. They give us a fantastic amount of insight as to what we should be looking at, and let's not just go in rushing to this thing and say, let's do this, this, and this, and we don't know how do we control or how do we recalibrate, as William was saying. So I missed those. Okay, that's it for today. In the next week, we'll be talking about the methodology of bringing these operational procedures. So next week we'll do OPs. How do we get the OPs to be actionable and generic and deal with all of these different frameworks? And then how do we get our scorecard, our artifacts to be evidence, and our scorecards to validate and provide us the assurance? So that's what will be coming next week. Any comments and observations? I'd love to get your feedback.
So the only one on the NIST is just understand that there's a NIST 0 and a NIST 1.
Yeah.
Right. The NIST 0 has the more comprehensive picture. NIST 1 has a more focused picture, but is more detailed. So it's helpful to read both of them.
So what we're going to be doing, William, is in the background, we will provide you with all of these frameworks created in what we call an orchestration engine.
Okay.
And so that orchestration engine is going to give you that baseline. And then what we're wanting to do is create a set of operational procedures that we can use to drive the projects so that they can deliver the value to the organization, but not to worry about all of these frameworks that are sitting in the background, but we're collecting data all the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. What I was just thinking is it might be helpful for people to go through in almost prep for next time, just because right now it's a word that has no real meaning to it. You and I have been through it. We know what we're talking about. Probably helpful for people to at least read through, even if it's the front section, to understand at a bit more detail.
Yeah, and I mean, I've certainly got copies of all of it. So I'm saving all of this stuff. I'm saving all my Excels so that if anybody needs all of these different things, they can come and get it from me. So every single one of these different things that come about, I've got copies of. Yes, Adam.
Hey, Howard.
Yeah.
Great detail. I like what you've hit on here. I think it might be helpful for a lot of people. Do you think you can set up a kind of a mini demo?
Yes.
On implementing.
We're going to be doing it. So in this one over here, we're going to be simulating some case studies and the ones that we've got. These are the ones that we've chosen are going to be that decision intelligence. I just want to see. No, that's not the one. So we on this. So it's not going to be next week. It's going to be the week after. Maybe if you bring up a good point, maybe what I can do is actually sort of almost do that use case, the simulations next week. So the one simulation is on decision intelligence, and the other simulation is going to be on using Gen AI to support knowledge management in data governance.
Okay, yeah, those are primary ones. The other ones that I focus on are around the ethics and the bias, evaluation of the training data, generation of effective training data,
Right.
because a lot of times you have to create your own.
Yeah. So what we'll do is you'll see in for example decision intelligence and things like fraud and risk detection. We're actually going to go and show you the operational procedures that need to be done to drive that project out. And in there, we'll be talking about the training and all of those issues that you're referring to at the moment. And they'll be connecting to the different frameworks. So as we said, okay, we've selected the training set. What did we use to document how we chose the training set and the testing set? Does that make sense, Adam?
Yeah, it does. That's great. And I can tell you, I'm in a lot of forums where I'm seeing a lot of the complaints about big companies, all the banks, companies like Amazon that are using AI right now for decisioning on things, on on accounts, on activities and stuff like that, where they've got it wrong.
Yeah.
A wrong decision has been made, and the company is actually unwilling to look at and evaluate it on a human basis. They're like, no, this has already been determined, so this is the way it is.
Yeah.
And my point has always been, AI can never make a final decision ever.
Right.
A human must always be the final decisioning point.
And what I like to do, Adam, and I'll show you there as well, is a lot of the times this what they refer to as digital decisioning, which is that RPA and AI. Digital decision
AI.
Yeah. Well, digital decisioning, RPA was long before agentic AI. Now, agentic AI is doing a lot better in that scenario, but what the RPA did was to say, have I got a situation where I know for certain that when I see an effect, I know the cause 100%. It's almost like you could translate it to an if then else statement. And I've spoken to so many RPA engineers, and I think it's actually quite depressing because they're not really doing much from a machine learning point of view. They're really just coding a set of if then else statements.
RPA is still the vast majority of it is still rules based.
Yeah, 100%.
And because I've worked on a lot of those RPA efforts.
Yeah. Now, what I like to do is, if I understand my relationship between cause and effect that this model is dealing with, so almost what is the state of my understanding and my state of information? And if I have a 100% relationship between cause and effect, then that needs to be monitored on an ongoing basis. Then I can potentially use and I can bring in the digital decision, but you've got to be able to have certain amount of checks and balances in that. Then you're going to exploratory analytics where you just don't know the relationship between cause and effect. Then you should not be trying to. Then you've even got to add more and more humans into the loop to make sure you don't get into trouble. So it's understanding that and the state of your information in terms of what risk it brings about.
Nicely put. Nicely put.
William?
You know, Adam, you actually raised an interesting observation from a different perspective. People are a lot more forgiving of people than they are of technology.
Yeah.
So if I've got an RPA decision thing and it goes wrong, all right, you got it wrong, we'll fix it. But if AI did it, man, then you're in trouble. And I think we've got a good bit of a road to travel before we get people happy with that.
Yeah,
But it's just
William, some of the big challenges we had with that is this thing of hallucination, right?
yeah.
The hallucination
Big time.
basically, I mean, that hammered Gen AI I mean, it's really put Gen AI back. Now, what someone challenged me some time back in one of these webinars, I said, well, how many times do we accept people hallucinating?
Exactly.
But we can't tolerate LLMs hallucinating. So there is that challenge. Adam, I thought you.
I call the people who hallucinate just incompetent.
Yeah.
So AI is never allowed to be incompetent. I like your thinking.
Right.
I will say this. So one of the big areas that AI is having a problem, well, companies that are employing AI in decisioning are having a problem, is in inappropriate areas of decisioning.
Right.
So
Right.
medical
Right.
decision. There are several high-profile lawsuits on medical companies that are using it for treatment or eligibility and stuff, and they're going to be in hot water. I don't know if they encountered it in. Hang on, just I don't know if they encountered it in South Africa at all, Howard. But if you recall, back in the late '90s, early 2000s, here in the U.S., we had a major problem. We had a lot of HMOs, health maintenance organizations, right? And we had a lot of them. And many of them were having low-level first, call takers making benefits decision on whether a treatment was approved or not, with absolutely zero medical knowledge or training at all. And the lawsuits basically put 99% of those HMOs out of business.
Wow. Yeah, we also sit with another challenge where our insurers, the health insurers, are starting to source medical medicines and equipment, and then almost demanding that the hospitals make use of this. So there's this reverse force that's coming in back onto the health industry, where the people are saying you've got to use this and you've got to use these devices and this technology and these tablets, because otherwise I just need to. Okay. Yeah, it's hectic, and what I do think sometimes we're not paying attention to is when we choose something to be eligible for AI, on what basis are we choosing that eligibility? And a lot of times we're not paying attention to the state of our information and the understanding of it.
Absolutely, and that's a key word: the understanding of the information.
Yeah.
So with respect to healthcare, imaging is an area that is very well suited for AI usage.
Right.
There have been tremendous advances in that area, where the top professionals are saying, yes, it is able to enhance these images an MRI or a CTI, even X-rays and stuff, to a greater degree than we would be able to
Yeah.
see with our eyes.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I've heard about a lot of those, the imaging picking up on cancer things that the doctors wouldn't pick up. And
Yeah.
yeah.
But diagnose. I am personally and professionally still not sold on diagnosing.
Yeah.
I think there's still that's a dangerous area to get into.
Right. Agreed. Johan, I saw you got and a few images there. Would you like to explain? When I looked at it, I wasn't sure what I was actually. I see Capitec and
Afternoon, ladies and gents. No, sorry, Howard. I'm just sorry. I'm barging in front of William. He's got his hand up. Adam, I'm just reinforcing your point about ultimately. I agree. I work in. Sorry, I've got a 1-year-old on my hip who's got a sneeze now. But I work in RPA, and I'm all for proper decision trees. But then I worked in fraud with Vodacom, and the level of sophistication by the fraudsters, where they actually spoofed the domain and they put onto the WHOIS registrar the dimension data, the active SMEs as the contact people. And if you run this through OCR, these bank statements will not be picked up as fraudulent. And that's a scary thing, because someone the other day, no, we'll do straight through processing. I'm like, I'm not signing off on that, because if you open it up, you and me with a trained eye, and you've been on the floor for a while, you see the font between the dates differ by the slightest bit, but OCR cannot disambiguate. And
Absolutely.
that is super scary.
That was an issue that I encountered, and I raised all heck on, was OCR and the low quality of even AI enhanced OCR.
It's phenomenally better now, and it can better
garbage.
understand the context, but not legally.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
And that, to
Okay,
me,
William.
that goes both into your risk management
Yeah.
and your ethics boxes.
100%. I think that you're so right there in terms of recognizing always the risk that we're playing with, and then also comparing that to the ethical side of it as well. So all of these things are in the game. And just when I was looking at this, that environmental layer or internal, there should be a corporate ethics there as well. So it's not just the risk tolerance, but it's also the corporate ethics.
And one other observation I'll make, this reminds me of it's like almost every time we have a new technology come out, we've got senior executives who don't know squat.
Yeah.
We'll say, oh, we'll use AI. That'll solve all our problems. Like when data lakes came out, I literally had a senior executive say, we're getting a data lake and that's going to solve all our problems.
Yeah. I've heard too many of them before, and I always feel sorry for them, because there's so much frustration that they're sitting under, and they will clutch at anything. And as Paul Bolton said, the next silver bullet that comes along, they're there to pick it up and run with it, because they feel like they're not getting.
I feel just the opposite. I don't feel that, because those people that respond like that, as far as I'm concerned, they're not qualified to be in the position they're in. They shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
So I have zero sympathy for that.
All right.
I'm not that tolerant.
I must admit, I've been into so many organizations where the executives are just so frustrated with the lack of delivery, And the things are a mess. They're jumping around with all sorts of stuff, and they're just not getting what they need. But different things. Yes, William.
So, Adam, to your point, if you removed all the golf courses off the planet, there would be nowhere else for them to make those decisions, right? We'd be fine. But
What about the pub?
yeah, you know what? There's too many people
Because
listening
most of
into
it's
the
done
conversation.
and most of it's done on the 19th hole.
Well, that's true, but it's amongst a very secluded group of people, right?
Yeah.
Just as an interesting analogy on this, we are used to, in terms of an analogy, we're used to driving a motorboat, right? Everything's fairly consistent. We understand how it works and all the rest of it. What we're facing now is switching from that to sailing. And there are so many dynamics around facing into the wind and catching the wind and
Yeah.
you know, all sorts of other things that most of it we don't really understand as yet, right? It's the same thing as before we knew that we needed metadata. You know, and so I think this is a journey. The real challenge about this journey is unless we do it together, we are going to tie each other up in knots. And I think that's what Howard is trying to make sure doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think, you know, I keep on seeing everyone suggesting we don't need data governance now because AI can do it, and we just need the AI governance. So we keep on bringing the next level of governance in to deal with it, and that's where a lot of our challenges are coming in. It's the same approach that we need to take with a lot of these things. So
good point,
yeah,
Howard.
guys.
I like your analogy, William.
Yeah,
I might snag that from you. And
No,
I'll get
you're
another
welcome to.
session.
and I suppose it's also flying like a Boeing and then going down to a glider.
Yeah. Look, I mean, in a Boeing, you don't have to worry about some of those winds. In a glider, you absolutely do. I think there's a blindness as well with wind, right? You can't really see what's happening.
Yeah,
and I think that's where we are. But if we do it together, I believe if we have the space, Howard, that you're creating, where we can share these things and create that center of excellence, I think we stand a good chance of being able to eventually get this right.
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can with, we're not going to get it perfect, but if we've got the right level of controls, like Adam's talking about humans in the loop and stuff like that, at least they can tell us that you're busy going wrong here. And then also if we've got the right level of feedback from external customers and things like that, I think we can get it right. But guys, I need to close it. I'm sorry about that.
No problem. We can talk forever.
Yeah, we can.
Yes, we can.
Guys, thank you so much. Thank you for
Thanks,
your time
Howard.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
everybody.
team.
Wonderful
Take care.
session,
Thank
Howard. Loved it.
you. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.
Thanks, Adam. Lovely to see you again.